Hello, and welcome to the Eco-nomics Unscripted, the podcast where sustainability meets business. I'm your host, Medha, from the Adam Smith Business School's Responsible Sustainable Management Steering Group. I'm honored to be joined by Anna Matthews, Director of Business for Good at Small Business Britain. Anna, thank you so much for joining me today.
Thank you for having me. It's lovely to be here.
What does business for good mean in practice?
I think business for good is about doing good business. I mean, every business has to be profitable, right? It has to make money, otherwise, it's not a business. But that doesn't mean that you then have to neglect all of the possible benefits you can bring as a business as well. So, what I find really interesting is thinking, okay, how can small businesses make money? How can they do good at the same time? And I think that's what business for good really encapsulates is the kind of okay, yes, I need to be, paying my bills and making profit, but what social impact can I have as well? And I also think in a lot of the work that I do, which is kind of looking after all of our social impact work at Small Business Britain, it's thinking about how we can ensure that entrepreneurship is accessible to everyone, not just to the classic entrepreneur, but also to more marginalized groups who might not have the same opportunities to do that. So I think that's what business for good means for me.
Yeah, that's wonderful. I think the idea of like expansion and inclusion is very
Yeah,
important.
definitely.
I'm sure some of our listeners would be very interested to hear how you got into business for good.
Yeah, I mean, so I studied at university English literature and Spanish, so nothing to do with business. And then I did a master's in broadcast journalism randomly, which kind of led me. So that actually led me into the role that I do now at Small Business Britain because I started kind of within the media team of it, and then I knew that my passions lay with social impact. Like it's always something that's really driven me. I've always had a passion for kind of wanting to, without sounding too cringe, make the world a better place. Like I've just really, that's always been a driver for me. It's been important that the work that I do, encapsulates that and reflects that. So as I luckily got the opportunity within the business to, start leading on our sustainability work, which we really, when it's always been a big focus at Small Business Britain, but it's been kind of something that we started looking much more into about 4 years ago and really kind of focusing on helping small businesses be more sustainable and, businesses who wanted to kind of do the right thing, that they got the opportunity to do that. So I was lucky enough to be able to kind of to go into that work. So I guess I could say I kind of fell into it from a passion, but also I don't I don't know if I necessarily agree with the word like falling into something because you kind of
Hmm.
like you direct yourself subconsciously towards things,
Yeah.
don't you, that you want to do. And I just had a real passion for it. So I took on kind of leading the sustainability work, which has then like kind of led into me like leading all of the social impact work that we do. And I love it.
So let's look a little bit closer at what you do at Small Business Britain.
Mhm.
What does business for good look like in practice for a small business trying to balance profit and purpose?
Yeah, exactly. I mean, so you mentioned Small Business Britain. So I think
Hmm.
just to give a bit of context, we are kind of champions of small businesses across the UK. We are kind of a network of and community of small businesses. We do training, we do reports, we do campaigns to celebrate entrepreneurship. I won't go into everything. We do loads, which is great. But like you mentioned, I kind of look after all of our business for good work with a fantastic team as well, which is very rewarding and fulfilling. And yeah, so we look after all of the yeah, like you say, the business for good stuff, kind of doing good business. So, like, what does that mean? Essentially, if we're looking specifically, for example, at sustainability, it's about feeling if businesses want to be doing the right thing, they feel that they are empowered to do that, knowing that they can also do it in a financially successful way. We ran the Willow review, which was it's launched in November 2024. It was a 6-month review, which was government backed. We worked with some fantastic kind of organizations to do that. So, the Broadway Initiative, who run the UK Business Climate Hub, the British Chambers of Commerce, and we had some fantastic experts on the steering board. And we essentially were proving the theory that sustainability is financially beneficial for small businesses because I think there's this kind of, widespread myth that sustainability is expensive, and you can't be a sustainable business if you also want to make profit at the same time. That wasn't what we were seeing in practice, So we did some research with some fantastic small businesses to understand what they were doing to, within their businesses, if they were making money from sustainability. And it turned out that they were. So obviously, a main thing about sustainability, if you want to be more sustainable, is cut back. How can you reduce your waste? How can you use less energy? Obviously, those are sustainable practices, but you're also going to be saving money. Like, we spoke to this fish and chip shop in Ireland who realized that they were like chucking away just loads of, they weren't really being conscious with their waste. So the owner was like, right, we can't have this. Let's do an audit. And they were checking over £800 a month away just in kind of packaging and like food waste that they didn't need to be doing. So as soon as they stopped doing that, that's an £800 a month saving.
Yeah.
Same thing with kind of like LED lighting. Yeah, it's a small, well, I say small, it's not a tiny cost, but like to implement kind of LED lighting, within shops. We spoke to one business owner who's now saving like thousands every few months on lighting costs because
Wow.
it's so much, they're being much more energy efficient. So I think that it's it's the kind of the notion of, doing good business, and I'm just speaking to the sustainability arch here. I know that there's much more that I could say about kind of the social impact and that kind of thing. But just speaking to the sustainability kind of arch of this, it's that you can do good business and you can have a profitable business, and most of the time they do go hand in hand.
Yeah. That's a lovely explanation, and I love the example of the fish and chip
Yeah,
shop.
they're
Um,
great actually.
what would you say are the biggest misconceptions that small businesses might have about being sustainable or becoming more sustainable?
I think, like I said, I think a big one is cost. I
Mm,
think, I'm not going to sit here and say it costs nothing
mm-hmm.
to install solar panels. Of course it is. Of course that's going to be a cost, but actually the payback period now is much lower, and
Mm.
over time you're going to be saving money. We know a small business. Actually, I can't remember where they're based, but they do like home beer brewing kits,
Oh.
and yeah, really cool. And they started from the outset being really sustainable. They're actually called almost off grid, and they now are pretty much all off grid, which
Wow.
means that when we had the energy crisis a few years ago,
Mm-hmm.
they were completely unaffected. So were completely did not, they weren't affected at all. And obviously, sadly, with everything that's going on in the world, there's going to be more kind of fluctuations now in kind of energy prices, but they just were not affected. So I think there's the misconception that sustainability will always cost you money.
Mm-hmm.
I don't think that's true at all. Um, I think there's potentially also a misconception that customers don't care,
Mm.
or that they care less than they used to, and that's not what we're seeing at all. I think that there's, a lot of narratives around sustainability now that maybe are scary to people, or they feel like it's not as important. But I think that they're actually a bit more sensationalist than necessarily true.
Mm.
And I think that there are a huge cohort of people who do really care, and actually that are caring more because they're kind of a bit worried about kind of the state of the world, and are looking for businesses to support who share their values. So I think that there's that misconception too, that customers don't care, which is, not true. And I also think a massive misconception is that if you, as a business, um, whether you're talking about sustainability or doing something kind of good, within the community, that it doesn't make a difference because you're so small. But that's also just not true. We know that small businesses can have a huge impact. So yeah, I would say that's something I always, that we always say to our small businesses, is that you absolutely can make a difference, and you're probably also doing much more than you think already.
Do you think that there are advantages to being a small business in trying to implement change? One thing that I can think of is that it's easier to enact change in a small business.
Yes. Oh yeah. I mean, as a small business, you're so agile. You can just think, okay, well, this isn't working. I'm going to change it. Or this, I want to try this, I'll do it tomorrow. You don't get that in a large organization. It has to go through, you have to jump through a lot of hoops, and there's different, processes of sign-offs and that kind of thing. And you can't just change your sustainability strategy tomorrow. Whereas a small business, you might be the only person working in your small business. You are the CEO, you are the marketing director, you are HR, you are the sustainability director, which, okay, that might sound overwhelming, but think about how much power you have with all of those roles and all those hats that you wear. Like, imagine how much change you can make tomorrow, what you can try at like the click of your fingers, that that a large organization couldn't dream of doing in 6 months. So yeah, massively. I think, and I know I'm biased probably because I love small businesses and I love working with small businesses, but I guess that bias comes from seeing the amazing things that they can do and the amazing change that they can have. We recently ran this initiative called the Green Growth Awards, which celebrated 100. So it's Green Growth 100. So celebrated 100 businesses who are successfully using sustainability in their business to um, basically to drive business growth. So that's really, they're using sustainability as their kind of financial driver. And then 2 businesses from that 100 won a grant for the work that they were doing. And I had the pleasure of kind of reading all of those applications, and I was like, oh my goodness, wow, like the innovation, like one business is using robots to like clean up algae from the sea, and like, or I can't remember exactly how it works, but then there would be, this, amazing jewelry maker who, is completely off grid in their shed, and also kind of collecting, cardboard to send everything that, send all her jewelry in. Or I know Keith, who runs a zero waste shop down in Mindhead, is doing beach cleans every day and like going to talks in schools. So a huge range of different things, but all having like collect. And I was reading all, I was like, imagine the collective impact of all of these businesses together. But they won't see that because they're just kind of, focused on what they're doing, which is still fantastic. But yeah, I think that yes, absolutely, there's so many advantages of being a small business.
I think that's wonderful. That sounds like it must have been a very tough competition.
Oh my goodness. Yes. Yes. And I'm really like sensitive to this kind of thing because I'm like, like we've been talking about business for good. If I see a business doing good, I'm like, this is the business.
Yes.
And then I read it again, and I'm like, I mean, this is great because there's so many businesses doing amazing things. But yes, yeah, just a bit. It's difficult.
You mentioned collective action and how
Yes.
doing sustainability can be very focused on, oh, I'm doing this alone, or I'm the only one doing
Yes.
this. But a key part in turning that sort of solidarity into collective action is the government, would you
Hmm.
say?
Yeah, I mean, so definitely in that so when we did the Willow review, for example, we created recommendations for government, for financial, for business support services, financial services, and small businesses themselves. So yes, there were specific recommendations for government within that, and yes, of course, they have a role to play. I don't think they have the only role to play. I don't think, especially with something like sustainability, which is, I mean, even kind of how do you define sustainability? Because I mean, we're not going to try here, but everyone, not everyone, but there are multiple different, definitions of sustainability. There's social sustainability or, environmental sustainability, and they all interlink. So I think just to put that on government would be kind of reductive. I think that it needs to be a broader conversation between everyone. I think, yes, they definitely have responsibility, but as do kind of consumers, as do large organizations, as do small businesses, as do we all have a responsibility to, think about how am I living my life, how am I spending my money, how am
Mm,
I kind of running my business, to think, okay, how is this affecting the environment, how is this affecting my community, how am I treating my staff, even, which kind of even falls under kind of the realm of social sustainability. So yes, I think government have a role to play, and I think it was really heartening to see them respond to the Willow review back in December, and commit to kind of more funding across, various different things, the Made Smarter Adoption Program, and, that kind of thing. But I think we all have a role to play. I
mm.
think, yes, government does, but I think the biggest action actually comes from communities, which then kind of pushes government to take action.
I think that's lovely and very true to like the belief and wisdom of Adam Smith.
Yes.
So, the work often translates into practical guidance for small
Yeah.
businesses. So, do you have any advice or like what are the simplest, most impactful changes that small businesses can make?
Yes. You know what's funny? Actually, that came out of the Willow review. One of the recommendations for small businesses was a 5 point plan. So it
Mm,
came out of the kind of the conversations and the research that we had with business owners who were already seeing financial benefits from sustainability. Um, and they were kind of 5 key actions that business can take, which will not only kind of help them be more sustainable, but also help them to either make or save money. Let me see if I can remember off the top of my head. But it was so taking action on energy. So
mhm,
that could look like, if you've got the investment to make solar panels, heat
mm.
pumps. If you haven't, switch the lights off. Obviously this is a broad spectrum
Yeah.
of things. Is it, swapping to a sustainable energy provider,
Mm,
getting a smart meter or that kind of thing, just to, manage your energy a bit better. It was partnering with sustainable customers or suppliers. So,
mhm,
thinking about, if you've got a supply chain, are you kind of a shop that brings in, different brands and that kind of thing? What's their kind of energy output, what are their sustainability credentials,
mhm,
to help you with your kind of like scope 2 or scope 3 emissions and that kind of thing, just to help you be a bit more conscious. And I'm conscious, and I know that kind of scope 1, 2 and 3 is even a bit jargon to a lot of small businesses, as it should be, like you don't need to be thinking about that kind of thing, but just thinking about what kind of suppliers you're partnering with,
mm,
and then that will then attract more sustainable customers as well to your shop or your business or whatever it is that you're doing. Um, Switching to sustainable packaging,
mhm,
because not only will that make you obviously more sustainable,
mm,
but like I said, it doesn't have to be the brand new shiny, um, you know, compostable or that kind of thing. It
mm,
can be, is there, like I said, a recycling scheme in your local area that you can
mhm,
like get the packaging from? If you can charge premium prices for more sustainable packaging as well, and the customers will come. Like it's,
mm,
I know as a consumer myself, like if I see that brands are not in a greenwashing way, but are being very open and honest about their packaging and saying, look, we do this, or, can you combine deliveries and that kind of thing, which is slightly onto the next point,
mhm,
that it's going to bring in more customers.
mhm.
The fourth point on the 5 point plan was the reducing travel and optimizing logistics. So if
Mm,
you're delivering, I know a fantastic business called Broadleaf Tree Care Leicestershire, and they
mhm,
are implementing a system which helps them kind of like optimize their travel within their business to make sure they're not doing unnecessary miles, and that kind of thing. Is it, electric vehicles, if that works for you? I know it doesn't work for every business, and it isn't always
mm,
the right choice, but it's thinking about the travel that you do and optimizing it. Like,
mm,
do you have to be doing, or but then even if it's a much smaller scale business, could that meeting be online instead of,
mhm,
in person? And I know that in-person interaction is super important as well. I'm not
mhm,
minimizing that, but it's just thinking about how can you optimize what you're doing within your business to be a bit more sustainable, but it'll save you money as well.
yeah.
And the final point is minimizing waste.
Ah,
So like back to the point around the fish and chip
yeah.
shops. How can minimize waste in your business? And which is obviously massively important for the
Mm,
environment, but also you can save hundreds.
yeah.
There's a wedding venue in up near Manchester, fantastic. And she said that the first thing, they've now got like a wind turbine and everything,
Oh.
but the first thing they did was get clear bin bags. And she said that just changed everything because they could see everything that they were throwing away. So
Yeah.
she was like, oh my goodness, like what is that in the bin? And what,
Mm,
this isn't, that was the catalyst for everything, just clear bin bags. And then
mm.
they did a waste audit, and then they, were saving so much money, and also, reducing their impact on the environment. So yeah, that 5 point plan would be my advice.
That's amazing. I think that what I got from that is that you don't have to do big things. You could just
No.
do like even doing very little can make
Mm.
such a huge difference. Yeah, sustainability is one of those wonderful things where like trying is the most important part.
100%,
Yeah.
100%. It's like back to school, like you get A for effort. I know that it's true in sustainability. It is, because nobody's going to ever be perfect.
Yeah.
Even somebody who claims to be, a sustainability expert will not be, perfect. What does perfect even look like with
Yes.
sustainability, right? We go back to what's the definition of sustainability? What does perfect look like? It doesn't. And I think that it can be a really reductive conversation if you're, you know, saying, oh, everything has to be perfect, therefore I'm not going to do anything. Well,
Mm.
obviously worse,
Yeah.
but it's understandable,
Yeah.
it's we're kind of constantly thrown headlines and stories that can make it feel so overwhelming, but it really
Yeah.
doesn't need to
Yeah.
be.
That's wonderful. The hidden successes of
Yes,
sustainability.
yes, and you should shout about them.
Absolutely. So yeah, here on the Economics Unscripted podcast, we do this funny thing.
Okay,
Uh,
gosh, okay, I'm ready.
we like to ask our interviewees a random bin chat question.
Bin chat.
Yes.
Okay,
So do you
fine.
have anything that you want to rant about your bins or
My bins. Do I have anything to well, it's kinda boring though.
Mhm.
They've taken away, what, as in, like, my actual bins,
Yeah.
like my actual rubbish. Okay. So yes, I used to have textile bins outside my house.
Mm-hmm.
So I was like, great. This is fantastic because I was doing a big wardrobe clear out. I don't want to chuck
Mm.
everything away. So
Yep.
right, okay. So I'd got like 10, like this is stuff that I've collected over the years of
Mm-hmm.
like different things. I was like, I obviously can't just throw this in the bin.
Mm.
So I had like 6 bags of stuff to take to the charity shop,
Mm-hmm.
which I did. And then I had like 4 bags of stuff. I'm like, this can't be reused. So
Mm.
I'm gonna recycle it. The next day, and no out of nowhere, they'd taken all the textile bins away. I was like, I'm fuming. And it's just, okay, this sounds, I know, well, but now I say it, I'm like, this is like really not a big problem. But it kind of was a big problem because I was
Yeah.
like, I've done this massive clear out.
Mm.
I'm ready to like be the responsible human that I'm trying to be, take all my clothes to the textile bin
Mm.
where I know that they're going to be recycled,
Yeah.
removed. So I was like, I looked it up. I was like, excuse me, where have all these textile bins gone? Apparently they hadn't. Well, I basically had to then annoyingly, then I was
Mm.
like basically there was like one's like half a mile down the road. I was like,
Mm-hmm.
right, feels wrong for me to like get an Uber with all my nice stuff. So
Oh God.
I walked with all of my, and it was hot. Oh, anyway, I was fuming. So yeah, that's my annoying bin chat. They removed all of my textile bins, just as I was doing my clothes clear out.
No, my God. You
Mm.
you keep downplaying it, but that is a massive
Right.
inconvenience.
But you know what it's taught me is that I
Mm.
shouldn't put things off because I've been thinking about that clear out for a really long time. And when like months.
Mm.
And then I finally got around to it. I was like, if I'd done this a few months ago, I wouldn't have had this problem.
No, but it
So
wasn't. I don't think it was you. The bins. It's the bins that are the
it's
problem.
the bins that are always the problem.
Yeah.
Always. So
I
yeah.
always tend to like do my clean out and then my bags are just lying there on my floor for months.
Okay, I will admit that that happened to me as well. So okay, yeah, you're right. I had done it. I'd started the clear out much earlier.
Yeah.
Didn't finish the clear out. Finally finished the clear out with the bins that had been
Mm.
the bin bags that had been kind of on my, in the room that acts as the bin of the house, I guess,
Mhm.
which I was finally clearing out too.
Yeah.
So yes, but
But
anyway, it's all sorted and I got rid of them finally.
yes, that is amazing. That's a huge success. I
Thank
think more
you.
people should do wardrobe clean outs. So
Yeah.
then that way you have more space for more stuff.
I know. More
Yeah.
secondhand stuff.
More secondhand stuff. Yes. It was so lovely talking to you,
Thank you.
Anna.
You too.
This has been the Economics Unscripted podcast where we talk about when sustainability meets business. Thank you so much for joining me
Thank
today, and
you.
I hope our listeners enjoyed your conversation.
Thank you so much. It's been lovely to chat to you.